Hey everyone, I'm Joeden. I am a dancer, writer, painter, poetry writer, and I am filming this in support of the social enterprise RDXL House. I am 21 years old. I live in the Bronx, and I am a complex, chaotic, flamboyant, sensitive, fragile, headstrong, scared, and risk-taking artist that honestly loves art more than even just making art, just loves talking about art and being able to, you know, expose myself to the most creative spaces possible. Um, I, like right now, literally love being around individuals who can provoke my own thoughts, and I always love a good challenge, especially with artistry. And I feel like definitely being a part of these types of spaces help challenge me a lot. And so, yeah, I guess I'm a challenger and I love being challenged. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, well, I do have a question, but I also want you to say, like, I'm going to have to say the question to you because I want to forget. But what type of artist are you? But then also, because you built up art to be this big thing in your words, this really big thing. So when I hear you say that, I'm like, okay, well, if you appreciate and you like love and like this feeling that you get of like being in community with other artists, like where do you imagine, where do you want to take that to? Like, what is the end goal do you imagine in your mind when you think about like your creativity, like where you could go, like what do you want it to do, like because Shakespeare wasn't thinking that he wanted everybody in the world to be learning in every single theater program, but girl, that's what we got.
Yup.
We got that white man everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. He was a person of color in his times. He was a person of color in his times. But they didn't have DI work.
Yes.
They didn't have it that back then.
Yes. Oh man, it's interesting because I feel like artistry and creativity is such a present thing. And when I think about where, of course I think about it all the time, like where my artistry can go and, how far I can go with it. It's always so conflicting because I always want to worry about what I'm taking in the present, and what I can soak in creatively in the present. But I will say, in terms of my future, I I mean I don't know. I mean, artistry for me, it doesn't really change necessarily through years or through, an amount of time, but more so in just the experiences that we're able to attain, the thoughts that we're able to hear from other people, and just, the actions that other artists take. Um, it's really conflicting for me to think about what I want to do because I'm always inspired by everyone else, and I feel like that's what amplifies me in whatever I'm doing. I feel like when it comes to art for me, it's never really premeditated. Um, I'm not, the most calculated sketch artist. I'm not, the most calculated or, intellectual artist where I know how to paint and draw correctly. But, you know, I would say, like, especially when I was, figuring out myself creatively and doing more paintings and stuff, I thought about, like, how it is to just, paint a portrait. But that it never gravitated to me because it's always how to make it look good, how to make it look pristine. And I never cared about, or at least now I realize I never care about how pretty it looks or how, precise it looks. I feel like when it comes to artistry, it should be messy, it should be rugged, it should be spontaneous. And that's what I love about, being around other people who are also artists and creatives because that spontaneous feeling of being around people with their own thoughts and their own understandings of art. It's something that I want to experience for the rest of my life. So I would even say that what I want to do later on in life with my creativity is what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a handful, but
No, that wasn't. Well,
Okay.
girl, if you have a all right? No, don't rush the process.
Okay.
And you know what? That's perfect. That was perfect that you said that because I was just about to say to the candy camera, to every single little niglet out there, and every single non-niglet. All right. I need you all to know what they just said was a speech, was a word, and it ain't even a Sunday. And why is because I think we were saying in some of the other interviews, so y'all will probably hear me say this a few times, but I don't care. Buy my book. I don't have one yet, but like you said, what I'm doing now, I'm doing in the future. I'll be writing a book in the future. So
exactly.
I'm doing it now in my mind.
Yeah.
But I truly do believe, and this is something I learned in theater school, that perfectionism is like a trait of colonism, and that like of white supremacy, like the idea that like something has to be perfect. And I understand that. I think that because I'm really big on definitions too, as a writer, as a person that like respects linguistics. I feel like it really helps us in our art to be able to define something and know like what is this, what is that, and that's what's so interesting about so many conversations about like identity and about like what does it mean to be a Black person, or what does it mean to be a woman, or what does it mean to be trans, like. Really, what I feel like it tells me consistently is that we have a problem and a lack of definitions and word and language in the United States of America. Because so many other like languages, they have like freaking 5 different words for the different forms of love that you can feel. You know, like familial love, romantic love. Girl, that love that you hung out with for 3 weeks and y'all was kicking it with each other every single day and then you never saw that person again. Girl, what you call that?
Situationship?
Situationship. But
definitely also, a situation. Yes.
But then there's a negative connotation with that. You know, everybody's like, oh, situationship. Like, girl, y'all couldn't figure out your situation. Like, maybe it was just like, you know, girl, I used to go to school next to a military base.
Oh.
So, you know, I do have my fair share of military story.
Serving.
Yeah, you know, I was serving, they were serving, and yeah, I was serving them, they were serving the country. No, I'm joking. Please. But, yeah, like,
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Enlist now.
Please, actually, no. Don't enlist now. Do not enlist now.
We can serve exactly where we are.
Yeah, because I will say, you know, my whole thing, the problem with a lot of them, honestly, was that I, like, just don't support the military. Even though I have a bunch of relatives that have been in the military, like, and also, like, we talked about before, like, my stepdad definitely was, like, NYPD. Like, you know, but it's like, I can't control other people, and I can't control what other people do. Do I think it makes sense? No. And my parents tried to send me, they tried to get me to go to the military. They, like, maybe take the little test and everything.
You know, it's funny. Before I decided to go to college, I thought about joining the Navy. And, like, I was in it, too. Like, I had a friend who is currently serving right now. And, you know, I was asking her, I was like, you know, like, what does it take, you know? And it's like, okay, well, can you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, take, like, a minute and a half shower, run an hour, run a whole mile and a half, and do, like, 40 push-ups and 40 sit-ups? And I did it. I did it for, like, a good week straight. And I was determined to see, like, how capable I was in doing this. Also, you know, I'm not that financially equipped, so of course I had to think about other means of education that didn't involve me having to get loans. So I thought about the military, unfortunately. But, you know, I even watched YouTube videos about, like, you know, the day ones that all these, you know, young recruits go into, and it's really, of course, for me, my dainty little self, it was not it, like, at all. And I think going back to your point about perfectionism, you know, kind of coinciding with this colonial idea, it's interesting because, of course, the concept of perfectionism comes from individuals who already set a precedent of perfection. And that precedent of perfection is more based on what's not perfect. You know, I don't think it's never necessarily been about how, you know, perfect, you know, white people are, but it's more so how
perfect idea of something.
Exactly, and how it contrasts from, you know, the rest of the other individuals. And so, and that's what I also love about artistry as well. And of course, like I'm inspired so heavily by, you know, Basquiat and Warhol, and, individuals and Caring, Keith Haring, and those were individuals who learned how to be messy, who learned how to extract perfectionism in a way that in its own right is so iconic and so well known. And I always feel like it's important as an artist to draw back the idea of what is perfect and what is beautiful and what is supposed to be made in its way, because it's all about having these maintenance checks, and it's not fair for us as artists to limit ourselves to this arbitrary understanding of what art is, and I think that's the whole beauty of art, being able to break those boundaries as much as possible, as quick as possible. So yeah, I mean, I definitely find my artistry to be very messy. Sometimes a little bit too messy, where I get too frustrated and I wonder, like, am I even good enough? All the regular existential artist things that we all go through. But it's being able to let yourself go and be in that vulnerable state of, I'm just gonna throw this paint on this canvas and I'm gonna see how it feels,
right,
and I'm gonna see how it looks.
See how this feeling looks.
Exactly, and that's another thing too. I really feel like when it comes to artistry, at least for what I want to do, it has to evoke the emotions that I feel. I have to be the audience as I'm creating my art.
Right.
I have to look at my work and say, like, how am I feeling at this moment as someone just looking from the outside in? As I'm writing, as I'm painting, as even if I'm modeling or trying to think about like how to style myself, it's of course to a certain extent it sounds like what other people think, but also it's kind of it doesn't make sense for an artist to not worry about what other people think when
the audience that's going to be absorbing.
Exactly, especially when we know as as a queer artist, as an artist who wants to amplify their Puerto Rican heritage and all that, like those different variables are so important to me. So I can't just think about myself. I can't just think about what I feel my artistry is, because it represents more than that. It represents my story, my life, my family's lives, my ancestors' lives, and I take that as serious as I can. But yeah.
Right, that's interesting. I have a lot of questions I could jump on from that, because I was like trying to stack them up, and I was like, girl, don't. I'm trying not to. But on the last point that you made,
yeah,
I like that's what I have to start with. Of like, so you brought up what I was taking away was like community, like how like your community is reflecting in your work. So like, is that how you feel like your community is reflecting your work? And maybe I'm gonna bring back a question I was thinking a few questions ago, which is you were like, I don't think about the future, I think about now. And I was like, okay, so what are you absorbing now? Like, if you are so in the present, in the now, like, what is it about what is influencing your art, your livelihood, like, your life, your experience right now? What are you taking in, like, the most? Like, what TV shows, film, like, things that you're seeing something every single day, and you're like, I want to write a story about that, Like,
oh, I mean, yeah, right now in my present, it feels more of a challenge for me as an artist when it comes to the pacing of life. I'm 21 years old. I'm still in college, still trying to figure out, how to move out of my mom's apartment, and trying to figure out how to navigate myself, by myself, for myself. And I think us as young individuals, we kind of have this pressure to, go out there and be able to, grab life and, go as far as possible. But it's not that easy for a lot of us. I have diagnosed depression and anxiety. And for me, I've always thought about how my mental disabilities kind of create this slower pace in my life, where I think about, how to be, and thinking about how to be patient, I think that's the word that I'm trying to think about more so. Um, when it comes to my artistry in the present is being patient and learning the pace of a 21-year-old now. Living life and seeing what happens next day by day. Um, and I think also as an artist, we think fast, we think impulsively, we want to be able to, I mean, not all artists, but at least for me, like, I think fast, I think impulsively, I say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. When you have that type of mentality as an artist, and then you think about, your mentality as a person and how it's so different, and the contrast of being able to express as much as you can, but also know how to take that step back and say, maybe we need to take a little bit more time and learn about what this feels to me. And it's definitely been more of a self healing experience than it is an artistic experience, which I think is probably even better for me because I think it will help resonate deeper feelings that I can evoke within my work and within my artistry. Um, but yeah, I think in terms of my present is learning how to be patient and learning this pace every day, of being so young and being so fired up with so much, but letting life take its toll day by day as it goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning patience is definitely
that's interesting to me, especially because I think that when you were talking about like the kind of pace that you were on your life, do you feel like if I don't know, I don't really know if there's a word that I know for it, but like I feel like as an artist and as a human, I would assume for other people it's the same way of like you do have to find your own pace to life, especially like the things that are happening in your life. And even I've started to realize, oh Lord, I started to realize the past few years that like there's certain times of the year or just like how many months go by before like a season starts to change and like I start to feel different about just anything going on in my life. And like it's not like a different like a negative view. It's just like I start to notice how like chapters kind of unfold. Like we always have this joke in college of like, oh, like girl, we're on season 3. Girl, you want season 3? I want season 5. Like you like have your own syndication of a
my
TV
little
show.
Netflix original.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, girl, you were on this Netflix original, but actually now that got bought by Hulu. So you left the high school one. You talk to somebody, but you won't talk to like.
I so agree. So agree. I've definitely had that type of mentality for a long time now too, and I've definitely come to learn how that has even pressured me even more to live life more. I think about, of course, like I go to college for film, and so I, unfortunately think of my whole entire life as a film, and I'm just like, my eyes are the cameras, and I'm just like seeing wherever my life goes. And I think that's why I've known to be pretty observant more than being, active in, talking and things like that. I like sitting down and being aware and like, setting my eyes, at his own cameras. And I think that pressure of being an artist and thinking about how you want to be able to propel in life and then realize that chapters do form and times do change, and it's really just adapting to it. And I think that's a pretty hard thing, at least for me as a creative. It's hard to adapt when you have this set mentality of what you want to see and what you want to pursue. And I think as a kid growing up, I say I lived too fast. I would say I always wanted to be around the bigger kids or be around the adults, and just know how to keep my posture and know how to be quiet.
Do you feel like you like felt like that? You just wanted to like.
Yeah, I felt like that because I just knew that it looked correct. It looked right. I think when it came, to hanging out with kids, it was just wanting to have fun, wanting to be crazy, wanting to do stupid things. But like for me, and I think also considering my upbringing and, how my mom has been such a hard worker in her own life that it kind of, grew onto me. I always just thought about, wanting to get into the best college and get the best job and have as much notoriety and success and money and all those things. And growing up day by day, year by year, you start to realize that you can't necessarily live like that. You really can't. I still go through my moments where it's like, oh, I wish I was here, I wish I was in that point, I wish I was at that point. And I think going back to this matter of patience, it's definitely been a challenge that I've been learning day by day with patience. Of course, it's really annoying. Patience is very annoying, but it's one of the most strongest skills you can have as an individual. And I think I'm also trying to learn that as an artist as well. Especially with like modeling, like my modeling activity has been pretty low, but in my head I'm like, I just want to pursue it more. I want to go forward more.
Stacks.
Yeah. Very much. And I just day by day just be able to learn patience, and hopefully it. Well, not hopefully, because I know that it will help. I know that it will assist me. Because patience is not something that can be, it can't be, what's the word? It can't be molded in a different way. It can't be construed in a different way. When you have patience, you learn boundaries. You learn how to be able to stand for yourself. You learn how to be able to be truthful and be vulnerable and, be able to, talk your shit, and I kind of feel like throughout my life, I've always held back from wanting to talk my shit. But now I learn more and more to at least keep a little bit of some shit, but yeah.
Period. Yeah. I wanted to call this the military, modeling, patience, and other tales from the Bronx.
Oh.
Yeah. Just made that up, but I want to turn it into a movie. And it's gonna be a queer love story, and it's going to be okay.
I can give you way more. Oh, I can give you way more in my life for some inspiration.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe in the Bronx. Like I said, the little month in at college, I was like, I see that.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask. So why do you think, when it comes to community, when it comes to media, like, why do you think that marginalized communities should really put their eyes and avert their eyes to these like spaces like ours, yes, that like are trying to like make resources and not just make resources for marginalized people going into media, but also are trying to make media that is representative of our global world and also grow your home, okay? Your household don't look like your TV. What's going on?
TV. It's true.
Yes. So, let's fix that. Let's work on that. Neighbors, Mr. Rogers should have been black. Joking, but shouldn't he? Okay? Let's talk about it.
I think you're definitely on definitely on the point of something.
Exactly. Maybe Asian. I'm gonna throw that out there. Okay, 6% ago, why wasn't Mr. Rogers teaching globally? And if he was, he literally like 6 out of 10 should have been Asian.
Yeah. There's this very interesting, isolation of the American dream and this American idea, and what it's like to live as an American. And clearly, I think what people don't get to understand is that the American dream is only a rich dream. It's only a notoriety dream. It's a dream of access. It's a dream of setting the standard. But it's so important to understand your own community and to look left and to look right and to not look all the way up above. When I grew up in the South Bronx, I found a lot of inspiration within my friends, and I found a lot of inspiration within my groups of people that I've been with, in school, especially at elementary school. It's being a part of that youthful experience with other individuals in this small little community. And the more I grew up, the more I realized how community is such a forgotten thing because we have to understand the pressure of moving forward. And of course, like us as individuals in this country, we have to be able to look forward and move forward as much as we can. But when we go into these aspects like media and we don't see faces like ours and identities like ours, it's obvious that our communities are just not accepted enough and they're not understood enough. And that's why, like, I've always found it so important to really rely on the media and certain outlooks of media that represent specifically your community and specifically who you are. As I said before, I grew up in the South Bronx. I grew up with hip hop. I grew up, uh, with so many different facets that kind of create this foundation of what the Bronx is in terms of music and culture and film and creativity. I think what's most important about all of this is the individuals who are able to go far and have that vision of community and know when to look back. I think that's so important for me. When I was in my first year of college, I created a film. It was a full feature documentary. It was about my grandmother, Miriam Mercado. She's this 80-something-year-old woman that grew up in the Bronx since she was 7. She moved from Puerto Rico to the Bronx, and her whole life is just an anthology of the human experience as a woman of color in America, especially during that time between like the 1940s to like the 1980s. And unfortunately now she has diagnosed dementia, and her memory has depleted to a huge amount. And so I thought, why don't I create a film to help remember what she can't? And I kind of did this, whole little moment with the camera, and I sat her down and I asked her questions and everything. And even from like the beginning of asking her what her name and her birthday is, it's like, what is it? Like we had to take like 5 tries to even just get like the order of what she had to say, and then remembering how old she was, and then remembering where she lived and stuff. And then I looked at that, and then I wanted to expand that, and then I expanded it to interviewing my mom and interviewing what she experienced as a woman in the Bronx. And my grandmother and my mom have 2 very different lifestyles, or at least journeys in their life. My grandmother was a custodian in the 161st courthouse, and she just worked and created a family, and that was all it. As long as she was able to get a job, get a house, and raise her family, that was all that mattered. My mom, she never went to college. She did 1 year of secretarial school, and then she just started working in Wall Street, and then she just worked her way into being an executive assistant for a music company. And I again wanted to expand it even more, and so then I started filming around my area where I grew up in, and I started filming, like the different places that I've seen as a child, and now as a filmmaker and as an artist, I kind of felt this sadness because, it's like you have this glamorization of what life is like as a kid, wherever you are, growing up in your community, and how fun it is to be with your friends, or just like, being with your family and being in your community. But then when you really film it in a different lens, especially with the premise of what my grandmother's going through and how she's aged into, this person that, it hurts my heart all the time. And then seeing that mirror my community in a way where I saw it become so dilapidated, and I saw how forgotten my community was. And it really opened my eyes a lot about how important it is to amplify your community. You have to be able to realize that because of your community, because of who you are, because of who you're raised, is why you went this far as an artist. There's so many individuals who have grown up in the Bronx or just in their own, small marginalized communities, and they forget about them. I think about like Jennifer Lopez, and I think about how she just went from, representing the Bronx as much as possible, and now she's just married to this white man talking about making wines and stuff. And I'm like, give back, give back to your people, to your community. Cause it's a preservation. And I also know that as well. Like that's also something that I've definitely been so passionate about. Is art is preservation of history. Art is a constant maintenance of who we are as individuals, and making sure that we understand who we are as individuals, as diverse and as unique as we are. Because we talk about the media, and we talk about how dysfunctional it is in so many ways. From the get, when we're kids and we watch shows, and how it does not look like any of us. It does not express any of our backgrounds, any of our identities, and we fall into these assumptions of what human life is like, and it's so stressful. It's so stressful to see that happen, and to see it still happen. But the power of community is so amazing when you insert yourself in it, right. When you are actually a part of it, when you participate with it. You can't look at your community and not be a part of it, and think that your community is ever growing and ever changing. It takes the people who have been there as long as they can to preserve it as much as they can.
Right. So, I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that's a great place to end it. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for speaking, and
yeah.
hopefully we'll be seeing them soon.
Yes. You will. You heard what? Preserve your art. Preserve your life. Preserve your community.
Preserve your art. Preserve your art. Preserve your life. Preserve your